Hey guys, thank you and welcome to my part 12 for Veeam Certified Engineer VMCE training course and exam. And guys, thank you for the feedback. Actually, the feedback I got is about the description of um, the uh, the videos. When I post on the YouTube, there is no description like which topic we are being discussed in that video. So I'm gonna be mindful in the future going forward. I will actually try to be pretty specific what we are talking about in the video. So in this video, actually, I want to talk about a replica. Replica is a huge topic, and I know there are other software I'm familiar with. One of them is Dell App Assure, and one of the reasons this software is so popular with a managed service providers because when you back up a machine, you have an option to create a virtual hot standby, and that virtual hot standby is actually powered off and it get updated whenever you take a snapshot or when you run a backup, and automatically it will back up your recovery point and then it will go and update the snapshot, update the your virtual hot power off virtual standby. This way, if you need to power on, something goes wrong, you can click on it and power on that machine. But the biggest difference I see it if you have a exchange server using, for example, Dell software to creating a virtual hot standby. The biggest problem is like once you switch over to a virtual hot standby as a production machine, you cannot go back to your original production machine. So if in case of exchange, it is impossible for anybody to go and start using your machine, and the only option you have, you will promote your virtual machine, the virtual hot standby to a production machine, and then create a new virtual machine and delete your original production machine. So it's kind of good for small businesses, but not for enterprise organizations. So what is different in Veeam? It gives you the same functionality. It also gives you the same functionality where you can replicate, you can create a replica, you can update the replica. You can keep a number of snapshots on it. So if you need to switch over to replica for whatever reason, either you can click on the latest one, one click, or you can choose which replication point to use to promote that machine as a production machine while you're troubleshooting or you're testing, or whatever number of reasons you have. And also, once you have a your replica running as a up and running as a substitute to production machine, and when you're going to roll back to your production machine, let's say you have a problem with the production machine, you switch to the replica. Now you want to go back to your production machine. So what happened if the change is done in replica in real time because it became the production machine? So Veeam will let you seamlessly migrate those changes from the replica to your production machine. So when production machine is finally up and running, it's like it never went down as far as users are concerned. So we're going to talk about all these things in this video actually. So basically in this video, we're going to talk about the disaster recovery, how you can use Replica for disaster recovery, and other scenario, for example, hey, you want to patch your system, or you want to test something. So for those reasons, so what is so there are few options when we talk about Replica, and a let's go to a actually software before we do a deep dive. So come on. Okay, I tried to actually set up a replication, a replica. Um, I'm going to stop the session for now. So what I'm going to do actually, I'm going to switch it back. That's the replica I created originally, so I'm going to actually delete it. So start fresh actually. And also I had a failover plan, so I am going to delete that one as well. Okay, this thing done. And I want to delete this thing too. So basically I want to start fresh actually. Okay, I think we are good. So this is what we're gonna do actually. We're gonna just like out of the box experience, right? You install the software and you backing up your machine and you said, hey, you know what? Let's see what the replica does, right? So you right click here on the jobs. You say, hey, I want to create the replication. So you click here. You select the replication name, for example, let's say my first replication, for example, right? And right here you have an option, describe your DR site. So if you have a DR site, you can say it's a low connection bandwidth, enable replica settings. Basically, it's not going to copy over. You have to do it manually, either by copying it to the USB device from your primary site to a disaster recovery site. Otherwise, let's say you have your machine, the one you're trying to create replica, is 1 terabyte, and so copy 1 terabyte over low bandwidth is going to take forever. And a second one is if you have like your DR site and you have like a different virtual networks, so you can enable it. For example, you have your machine with IP address 10.1.1 and your DR site has a different IP addresses, I say 192.1.1. So right here you can define it actually when this machine moves from DR site to, I'm sorry, from your primary site to DR site, and you need to power that machine on for whatever reason, then it will come up with a new IP address. So from users perspective, they will not see the difference because you have like a DNS entries in your DNS server which pointing to both IP addresses. So it's kind of round robin fashion, or you can use any other options you want to. And the third option is you want to do you want to re-IP totally differently. You can re-IP it completely. So these are 3 options right here, and keep an eye right here. See, depending upon choosing this option, you see this option is being changed right here. So right here you will see a seeding option comes. So that's the option pops up only when you select this option, and the separate virtual network comes when you the network option comes right here, and the different IP comes with the re-IP. So you have the menu option will be presented to you based on the option you're using. And if you're not using anything, for example, if you're you're not using your disaster recovery site, let's say you're a small business, for example, and you have 2 ESXi servers, for example, and on one ESXi is used as your production site, and you have another ESXi, so you can create your replica on a second ESXi. So if for some reason your ESXi on the first, the first ESXi where it's hosting your production machine goes down, or the production machine itself goes down, then you can easily, spin off that machine on a second ESXi server, either automatically or manually. So let's say I'm not going to use this option just to keep things simple. As long as you know these options, that's good. Like I said before, if this were to be a real enterprise class, the Veeam implementation, we would have discussed this thing in a planning phase. And in planning phase, you can do it yourself, which is wonderful as long as you have the knowledge. And number two, you can hire a consultant whose job is to implement Veeams all day long, or you can call Veeam itself, and say, hey, you call Veeam, and I think they do have a professional services, or their pre-sale guy or there is the solution architect will help you design your disaster recovery, as per your needs. Actually, they will ask you some questions, your priorities, and they will design it for you, and then either you can do it yourself, or you can have third party do it. So my first replication job right here, and right here, what I'm trying to do right now, I'm trying to replicate a machine, right? And I want you to see this thing. So if I go here on my infrastructure, for example, and I'm going to pick one machine. Let's see. This time I'm going to pick this is my Citrix Provision Services server. So I'm going to say, okay, add. And I'm going to click next. And it's going to ask me which host you want to. So I'm just going to pick this one right now. 44. I need to know which host is running on right now. Let's see. Just give me a second. So I'm going to bring the my vCenter actually. So I selected 44. So let's see where it's running currently. So right here you see the PVS is actually running on 44 itself. So what I'm going to do it, actually I'm going to change it. I can move this machine to another host. I can just do a vMotion, or actually it's easier if I choose a different host right here. So instead of 44, I'm going to choose 45. How about that, huh? So I chose the host 45, and the resource pool is resources. I don't think I have a I can actually, under resources, I can choose since it's actually, you know what, let's use the Veeam just for remembering it. And this is the folder VM, and this is the data store. You can pick the data store and you can select the drives. So this is pretty easy. So right here it's saying, see, my repository has only 3.7 gig free because of backing up other stuff. So I'm going to see if my other recovery has some. So yeah, so this one has 97.7 free. So I'm going to use this one. And so I chose where for replica metadata, so right here you see, if you have, when you're creating a replica, so you don't want to name the same machine, you don't want to keep the same name. So what it gives you the option, right? It gives you the option for underscore replica. So this way, hey, this is the replica. So this way you can distinguish between the production machine or what you call it, a replica. So here you can actually name it. If you don't want it, you can actually put dash, say, blah blah basically. So if you know, hey, it's a blah blah means it's replica. So we don't want to name it something, which is not cool for production, just in case if your superior or your boss is looking at it. So, but you have an option. So I'm gonna go back and replace the same to replica. So here's the other thing to remember: the restore point to keep. So these are the decision you have to make it right here. So you creating a replica from your production environment to uh, non-production environment. Yeah, it's still production environment, but like a backup, for example. It's not going to be actively used. And you have set a um, if you keep 7 restore point, and these restore points are hourly, for example. So you're gonna have you can go back to like 7 hours worth of recovery points, like every hour. You can keep it longer. You can keep it whatever number you want, but that might create a problem because these are actually restore points are basically is the VMware snapshots on your replica. So when I'm going to show you right here actually. So if you are in your machine and you click right here, see, go to a snapshot, say snapshot manager, there's nothing here, right? So what I do here, I'm sorry, not the same one. Let's go to no, this is too big actually. Um, let's do the SACM one, for example. So I right click on it. I'm going to do a snapshot. I'm going to say, hey, snapshot manager. This already had a snapshot. Let's try a SF2, for example. This is just the example of it. So if I click here, and I'm going to say, hey, take a snapshot, right? So I'm just going to uncheck this thing for, I'm going to say this is 1, right? So I can choose the other option, but this is just for, proving a point. So I'm going to click OK. And it's going to go and create a snapshot. It should not take long because it's a pretty small machine. So you go under a snapshot machine and say, hey, you got 1 right here, right? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to close this thing. And then after I make some changes, let's say it's been like 10 minutes, which is not, but just assume it's 10 minutes or an hour. You right click here and you say take another snapshot. So this one I'm going to name it 2, right? And then let's say, if you go and check your snapshot manager, now you see 2 snapshots. And you have an option to, normally it's the basic VMware. You can merge all these changes, whatever changes has to the top one just by deleting it. And once you delete in VMware whatever snapshot, the changes get merged. So in this case, what we can do it, you can right click on it, I mean, you say go to, you select 1 and you say go to, and what it will do, it will revert back to the snapshot 1. So what I'm trying to prove here is, this settings right here, the 7 is like 7 number of snapshots. These gonna be like number 7 number of a snapshot, and they're gonna be a preset time based on your decision, how um, um, the time interval between the snapshots. So I'm gonna move this thing away from here. So these are the snapshots. So if you want to set this thing like 999 snapshot, you will see a tons of snapshot right here, and which is not the best way to do it. So you already have a backup. So if something goes wrong, like your server crashes, if it's a production machine and it crashes, most likely you will know within 5 minutes, or within in an hour, if if there's a corruption, or if you have a crypto locker or ransomware attack, if you catch it right away, you know what, you can go and restore it to an hour. So the only thing you will use is you will lose is an hour worth of data. depending upon the frequency. If you have it like 15 minutes, 10 minutes, you know, it's faster recovery. So, and right here, if you go under advanced option, it's same thing is exclude swap block. These are standard setting. Compression is, we know, we talked about it. LAN target is, that's where you choose for, storage optimization. So since we're going to be using it, locally, so it's just the LAN. And notification, you have the email notification, if you want to. And here you can use a guest consents. Um, is virtual machine with the application aware image processing, integration. You can use this thing as, and if you have any right here, I think we went through with all this option. These option is the same we discussed in previous videos. So I'm gonna click OK, and then I'm gonna click next. And here is the source proxy. So whenever you're doing a replication, we're gonna talk about this topic. You have to have a source proxy and you have to have a target proxy. Let's say if you are copying it from your production site to your data recovery site, so it makes it much faster for resource proxy to deduplicate the data and do all kind of things it does, and then transfer it to the DR side, and the DR side will do unzip it or uncompress it or whatever option is supposed to do. It will do it. And right here you have an option to use a direct or through a built-in WAN accelerators. So again, the WAN accelerator is a good choice, best for offsite replication over a slow link due to significant band saving, which is almost 50%. And you can have a source WAN accelerator and you can have a target accelerators. So basically, if you, okay, let's read this thing. When replicating between remote sites, so this is more like a remote site. We highly recommend, we means Veeam highly recommend it, that you deploy at least one backup proxy locally in both sites to allow direct access to storage. So that's actually the main purpose, is to access the direct storage. And when you use a WAN accelerator, what they do, the reason, hey, WAN accelerator is not a magic. It's kind of a system. So what WAN accelerator does, it creates its own cache actually. So the first time it copies, yeah, it takes a little longer. The next time it copies, it only copies the changed blocks. So it doesn't have to copy the entire file from point A to point B. So with this own mechanism, that's why you get the bandwidth saving of 50%. So in this case, we're just gonna use a direct and gonna click next. And right here, enable application aware processing. And here's the password and a guest interaction proxy. Since we don't have many, we're gonna take the default one or do the automatic selection. I tried to add another one actually on 81, but right now I'm gonna leave it on automatic selection because I want you guys to see how to add a interaction proxy. So, and basically it's all the same. You click OK. Actually, I'm going to go one back, and you have an option here to test now. So it's better to test now than actually, hey, you type the wrong password or password expired or whatever reason. So it is always a good idea to test it. And I know this warning. This warning is because of the storage. So I'm going to close this thing. I'm going to click next. I'm going to go back because just for a second I'm going to make sure I chose the right repository. Yeah, okay. Right here, run jobs automatically, and that's where you will see the 7 recovery points basically. So if you choose run it every day, you're gonna see a it doesn't let me do it. Okay, you're gonna see a 7 points here, for one for every day. So if you choose here like, hey, periodically 1 hour, then these points you see, they're gonna be hourly. So I just want you to understand this thing, because this is the key, concept of right here when we configuring the job. So just for testing, um, what I'm going to do, I'm going to choose 1 hour actually. Uh, and right here, the same thing, three, retry VM processing 3 times, wait before each attempt for, between the attempt like 10 minutes. And right here, terminate job exceed, allow backup window, which is like, hey, you don't want to go into you don't want it during the production time, if you want to. So right now it's 24/7 by 365. So click and see, I'm going to click on it, finish job. So what did we do here? We simply created a replication job. So I'm going to actually pause this video right here, because I don't want to take, it's been 26 minutes, so I want to see once this thing is completed. So we're going to go to the next step actually. Okay guys, you see this job is finished, and it just finished. It actually took we started at oh, this size is 500 gigabit, that's why. Totals and 13.5 views. So we started at, where's the time? 4:41 p.m. and it's finished. No, it's finished. It finished at 4:41 p.m. It started at 4:20, 28 actually. So 30 and like a 13 minutes. So once this thing is done, so we have a replication job which is gonna be backed up every hour. So let me see where that machine is actually. That was a PBS one. That's correct. So let's see here. So this is the machine, the PBS one. We backed up, and it's gonna be show up under Veeam. So, and we're gonna talk about why we got this error message. So if I do a snapshot manager, you see right here, it created a one restore point for that time. It's 4:29 is finished. So this way it's going to keep up to 7 points, and every point's going to be delayed by an hour. That's what we configured, right? The other thing I want to show you here, you will see this the error message in this one, and right here, if you click here, it says VM MAC conflict. So if you look at under edit settings and under the MAC address, so right here you see that FA04. So I just want to say, hey, look, it says a MAC conflict, but we'll see in a second. So this one, the replicated one, says 04 at the end, right? Just to remember it quickly. And the actual the machine, we actually copied it, which is a PVS01. If you do edit settings, and if you look under here, the MAC address, it does not say 04 at the end. So it means it's definitely not using the same MAC address. But we are getting this error message from MAC conflict. And I did the research actually, and I came across the Veeam knowledge base article, and also some the blogs where people are saying when they called the Veeam support, they were saying, hey, this is by design, so you can just ignore it. So every time, even if I click here and I say, hey, say clear this thing, it's going to disappear, but it's going to come back on the next snapshot. It's going to run. That actually is my experience. And since we are creating a exact replica, that's why this message pops up. Again, by the KB article from Veeam, and from from the blogs, it's saying this is by design. So I'm not sure if they're going to fix this thing in a newer version or not, but as of 9.5 it's not, and I am using a ESXi 6. I'm not very sure if I have a update one or not. So anyway, because this is not the VMware issue, it seems like it's a Veeam issue, so I'm gonna leave it to that. So now we go to Replica, and under Replica you see this one is first replication job was successful. It's ready, and right here when I click on this replicated job under replicas, actually where it says ready, I have this option: failover now, plan failover, add to planover plan, add to failover plan, new failover plan. You can create a new failover plan. Remove from configuration. You see all these options. So what I'm trying to say is now is the time to deep dive on these options. What are these options are? So we're going to talk about, actually, once we know how to create a replica, right? So now we're going to talk about it, what these options means, because these options are pretty important. And again, when we're talking about a replica and a failing over now, or plan failover, or whatever the options are, why we need this option, when we're going to need this option. And just remember one thing, this, which is very important: whichever option we choose right now, they are considered intermediate steps. Meaning, if you do a failover now, you have to finalize it. There are more steps after that. It's not just you click on the failover now and you're done. No. Or if you do a planned failover, and once you do a failover, then you have a more options. You know, you want to do a failback, you want to finalize it, you want to move it to production. So back to the original statement is these are all intermediary steps. So you're gonna need at least 2 or more steps to finalize your replica failover. So guys, here's the deal. So we're gonna go like, what is failover? So what it is, if your primary VM, which is in production, and becomes unavailable for whatever reason, it's saying you can restore services by, powering on or failing to your replica. And basically, when you perform failover, so your replica takes over, and it takes over, the role of original VM, and you basically switch from your production machine using your replica. So all those, the network traffic which was pointing to your original machine is now pointing to your replica. In perspective, this is the replica we created, and there's so many machines actually. So this is the machine. So this machine, this replica belongs to this machine. So that's why it says CTI-PBS-01. This is the original machine. So you can see this IP address is 104. So just for hypothetically for testing purposes, what I do, um, let's see. So if I ping, come on, what's the IP address for this one? It is a 104, right? So 192, 168, 222, 104 minus T. Oh, come on. I can even talk minus T. Minus T. So minus T is like we're not gonna, it's gonna continuously ping. So we know that machine is pinging. And to prove or to actually check, I'm just gonna go right here, edit settings, NIC card. I'm just gonna disconnect the NIC card. It's just like a pulling the cable. Click OK. So this machine should stop pinging. See? So what I'm doing it, I'm just simulating the failover, just in a lab actually, or I can actually shut down this machine, power up this machine. Basically, it's the same thing. So what I do now right here, if I right click on this one, I'm just doing this thing manually. I don't have to do this thing manual. It just to clear the concept, right? I'm gonna power on this thing. And you can see right now it's just taking a TCP/IP 6 IP address. That doesn't matter. So right here you can see it's not pinging. Well, the machine is up. Seems like it might have to restart one time. I'm not sure if um, this thing is caused by the backup, or was it a, like if sometime you take the crash consistent backup. So we will test. Oh, this one was from earlier version. I'm not sure. So let's see here. So we are running the replica, and the replica should ping actually, um, because oh, I'm sorry. It's my mistake actually. Huh. What happened is this machine, when we do a replica, by default it does not take the production VM, production VLAN. No, it took the production VLAN. Yep. So hey, this thing should ping actually. Yep. Everything is the way it's supposed to be. So why it's not pinging? We didn't do anything wrong. Let's say why. It's funny. It's not pinging. It should ping actually. See, we did log in before and somehow it just, or maybe it logged out. So the reason I'm testing it this way is so we know exactly what is promised by the Veeam and what is delivered. And I know this thing works fine. This thing supposed to work flawlessly, so really, it's so slow. I can't make it type. Okay, sorry. So see, it did not take the Ethernet adapter. It does not show the okay guys, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to try to restart this machine one time. Um, because we did see that the Mac duplicate Mac error. So by default, VMware will not allow having the same the MAC address on two machines, even though it's different. So let's see, by rebooting it, it does make a difference. Actually, in a VMware, rebooting doesn't help. You have to power off and power back on. Um, that's pretty amazing. um, it did work fine with my other machine, so actually, let's see, what does it show under. Close this thing for a second. Under here. Oh, I'm sorry. Was I checking on PC? It's PVC1, or was I checking the replica? Because obviously the original machine will not show the NIC because we disabled it. So what this one does? This one picked up a IP address 174, so that's why it's not pinging. So 174, because the hey guys, so it is pinging. The reason why this thing is doing it, it didn't keep the same IP address, because in my environment I have assigned IP address based on a MAC address, and there is a reservation in DHCP. So even though we created a replica, it would not assign the same IP address, because the reservation was set to a different MAC address. So my apologies. It just my particular environment is causing it. So basically the machine. So let's see if we ping. We should have pinged it by the CTI dash PVS dash 01, and that would have worked actually, because we were pinging with the IP address. That was our mistake. But here, this is something we learned, right? Um, so just to so what I'm gonna do now, basically, I'm gonna go to my because I'm not using Veeam. I'm doing it manually just to show the process actually. So I'm gonna go back to Replica, and I'm gonna say, hey, you know what? Power off. Yes. And power back on my. Oh, this was already on, so what I'm going to do is basically just go and turn the NIC on, which is like, you know, reconnecting the network. So you see this machine is the replica is being powered off, and the original machine, you see, is automatically the IP address got changed because we pinging um, the name, NetBIOS name. So let's see. Did I actually save it? ABS, edit settings, net card. Yep, it is saved. Um, since I'm using a MAC address reservation, so what happened is when by default the DNS caches it caches the DNS name into its cache, for example. So it was still trying to ping to 74. So I just what you call it, a killer the cache. So it's pinging back to the original machine. So as you can see it by creating a replica and shutting it down, the production machine, it seamlessly goes to a replica. And when we shut down the replica and power on the production machine, it goes back to a you know production machine, start pinging to the production machine. So couple of things here is whatever I did right now is to show the concept actually how the replica works, and now we're going to do the same thing using the Veeam actually. So what the Veeam software is going to do it when we create a failover plan and we execute the failover plan, it will power on the replica and shut down your production machine. Or if production machine is already shut down, that's a different case. And then when we start using the replica, and we will make some changes to the replica, and then we roll back to production machine, simulating like there was something wrong with the production machine or there was power outage, and now its power outage is gone. And in this case, those changes which we going to make on replica, that changes should replicate directly to the production machine upon when we finalize it, because when we switch over to replica, it gives you a couple of options. Hey, you want to use this replica as a production machine going forward, or you can actually shut it down and copy the changes and go back to the production machine. And so guys, it is a 48 minutes actually, for like it's going to be 50 minutes. So I do apologize for this a Mac reservation, and I'm going to try to create another video to follow up this session, and I'm going to try to set the description, like we're talking about replica part 1 and replica part 2, in a description, not on the name, because I want to keep the same naming convention. Hey, I appreciate your time, taking the time and watching my videos. If you like my video, please subscribe, and thank you very much for your time.